Picture this. You're in a room full of ambitious people. Half of them are grinding honestly, staying true to their values, treating others with respect. The other half? They're lying, manipulating, stepping on anyone who gets in their way. Guess which group is more likely to end up on top? If you guess the ruthless ones, you're absolutely right. And today, we're going to explore why the world seems rigged in favor of the worst among us. I'm going to share something that might make you uncomfortable. Something that challenges everything we've been taught about karma, fairness, and good guys finishing first. The truth is, bad people don't just sometimes win. They win consistently. And there's a dark psychological reason why this happens, rooted in human nature itself. By the end of this video, you'll understand the hidden mechanisms of power that operate in every boardroom, every political arena, and every social hierarchy you've ever been part of. More importantly, you'll learn how to navigate this reality without losing your soul. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone less qualified than you get promoted simply because they were better at playing politics? Drop a yes in the comments if this has happened to you. Let's start with some hard facts. Look at any power structure, corporations, governments, social circles, and you'll find a disturbing pattern. The people at the top aren't necessarily the most talented, the most ethical, or the most deserving. They're the most ruthless. Take corporate America. Studies show that psychopaths are 4 times more likely to be in leadership positions than in the general population. 4 times. These aren't cartoon villains twirling mustaches. They're charming, confident individuals who lack empathy and will do whatever it takes to win. Or consider politics. The most successful politicians aren't the ones with the best policies or the purest intentions. They're the ones who can lie with a straight face, make promises they never intend to keep, and destroy their opponents without losing sleep. But why? Why does society reward the worst behavior? The answer lies in something philosophers have wrestled with for centuries: the fundamental nature of power itself. Here's what most people don't understand about power. It's not distributed fairly or randomly. Power follows specific psychological patterns, and those patterns favor certain personality traits over others. First, there's what psychologists call the dark triad. 3 personality traits that, while toxic to relationships, are incredibly effective for gaining power. Narcissism, an inflated sense of self-importance and entitlement. Narcissists believe they deserve success more than others, so they pursue it more aggressively. Machiavellianism, the willingness to manipulate others for personal gain. These individuals see people as chess pieces to be moved around for their benefit. Psychopathy, a lack of empathy and remorse. Without the emotional burden of caring about others' feelings, psychopaths can make tough decisions that decent people couldn't stomach. Now here's the kicker. Each of these traits, in moderate doses, actually helps people climb social hierarchies. The narcissist's confidence is mistaken for competence. The Machiavellian strategic thinking gets results. The psychopath's emotional detachment allows them to make decisions others won't. But there's something even deeper at work here. Something that goes back to our evolutionary roots. Let me take you back 50,000 years. Imagine you're part of a small tribe competing for limited resources: food, shelter, mates. In this environment, who's more likely to survive and pass on their genes? The person who shares their food equally with everyone, or the person who hoards resources for themselves and their family? The person who trusts everyone at face value, or the person who's constantly watching for threats and deception? The person who avoids conflict at all costs, or the person who's willing to fight for what they want? Evolution doesn't care about fairness. It cares about survival and reproduction. And throughout human history, certain antisocial traits have provided survival advantages. This is why we have what researchers call fast life strategies versus slow life strategies. Fast life strategies prioritize immediate gains over long-term relationships. They're more likely to take risks for quick rewards, exploit others before being exploited themselves, focus on quantity over quality in relationships, use aggression to secure resources. Slow life strategists invest in long-term cooperation and relationship building. They build trust gradually, share resources for mutual benefit, prioritize quality relationships, use collaboration over competition. In a perfect world, slow life strategies would always win. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where resources are limited, competition is fierce, and sometimes the person willing to break the rules gets there first. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of history's most evocative thinkers, had a brutal and unsettling theory for why good people often finish last, and why those we label bad often come out on top. It all comes down to two opposing moral codes, master morality and slave morality. Picture this. Two warriors stand on a battlefield. The first exudes confidence. He's powerful, bold, unapologetic. He doesn't wait for permission. He takes. He carves his path through sheer will. In his world, hesitation is a liability and self-doubt is fatal. The second warrior hesitates. He wonders if his actions are fair. He looks for signs of approval. He waits for validation, hoping that if he plays by the rules, the world will eventually reward him. Now ask yourself, who survives? Who rules? To Nietzsche, the answer is obvious and disturbing. The first warrior lives by what Nietzsche called master morality. This morality isn't concerned with being nice or fair. It's built on power, self-affirmation, and the raw will to dominate. In this worldview, what is good is whatever strengthens the self. Strength over weakness, pride over humility, ambition over modesty, action over contemplation. Masters don't follow rules. They create them. They don't need society to define their value. They embody greatness on their own terms, and they pursue it without apology. On the other hand, we have slave morality, the moral code of the powerless, born out of weakness and oppression. Slave morality doesn't celebrate strength. It resents it. Where the master sees pride, the slave sees arrogance. Where the master sees dominance, the slave sees cruelty. And so, in retaliation, not with swords or armies, but with values, slaves invent a new morality that flips the script. Humility becomes a virtue. Compassion becomes strength. Suffering becomes sacred. Obedience becomes noble. The slave, unable to win in the physical or political realm, wages war in the moral realm. If I can't beat you, this morality says, then I'll redefine the game so you're wrong for winning. And here's the uncomfortable part. Nietzsche wasn't praising one morality over the other. He wasn't saying the strong should trample the weak. What he was doing was holding up a mirror to society, then smashing it. Because behind every promotion, every political victory, every power structure, Nietzsche saw the fingerprints of master morality. The people who rise tend to be bold, decisive, often ruthless. They're not always moral in the conventional sense, but they get things done. Meanwhile, the ones who wait politely, who sacrifice for others, who follow the rules, they often get left behind. It's not that humility and kindness are useless. In many contexts, they're essential. But Nietzsche's point was this: the world doesn't always reward what is morally good. It rewards what is effective. Take a look around. The ruthless CEO who cuts corners and steps on others gets promoted. The charismatic but manipulative politician wins the vote. The loudest voice in the room gets the attention, regardless of substance. And the quiet, honest worker, the thoughtful, ethical candidate, often overlooked. It's not fair, but Nietzsche wasn't writing fairy tales. He was trying to wake us up. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. Nietzsche believed that modern society, especially Western civilization, is dominated by slave morality. Our institutions, religion, education, even popular culture, encourage self-sacrifice, humility, and obedience. We're taught to be good followers, not strong individuals. And Nietzsche feared this would lead to cultural decay, a world where excellence is punished and mediocrity is celebrated. But Nietzsche didn't stop at critique. He had a vision, a radical one. He envisioned the rise of a new kind of individual, the Übermensch or Overman, not a tyrant or a bully, but someone who transcends both master and slave morality. Someone who doesn't just follow inherited values, but creates their own. Someone who faces the chaos of life head-on and forges meaning through action, creativity, and willpower. The Übermensch doesn't ask, "What would others think of me?" They ask, "What can I become?" So how do bad people rise so quickly? How do they seem to get what they want, when they want, while leaving a trail of confusion, broken trust, and manipulation behind them? Let's peel back the mask and break down the psychological playbook they use. These tactics aren't just manipulative, they're surgical. Precision tools in the hands of those who lack empathy but crave control. 1. The charm offensive. Let's start with the bait. Not all predators snarl. Some smile. Psychopaths, narcissists, and manipulators often present themselves as magnetic, confident, and disarmingly charming. But it's not genuine warmth. It's a calculated performance. Like skilled actors, they scan your body language, your tone, your interests. They learn what you crave: admiration, reassurance, validation. And then they become it. They're emotional mirrors, reflecting back your desires, fears, and hopes with uncanny precision. You don't feel like you've met them. You feel like you've been seen. But you haven't. You've just been scoped. 2. Strategic vulnerability. Now comes the hook. They reveal flaws, but not real ones. These are curated, safe confessions designed to fast-track emotional intimacy and create a false sense of closeness and trust. It's a manipulation of reciprocity. You feel compelled to open up in return, unknowingly handing over emotional leverage. This isn't vulnerability. It's bait, and it works. 3. Triangulation. This is where the game gets nastier. By introducing third parties, real or imagined, they create artificial competition. You might hear, "Just so you know, Sarah thinks you're not a team player, but I don't see it that way." Suddenly, your trust shifts toward the manipulator. They position themselves as the only one who truly believes in you. This breeds loyalty and isolates you. Now you're dancing to their rhythm, fighting shadows they created. 4. Gaslighting. One of the most insidious tools. Gaslighting is psychological warfare, designed to make you question your sanity. You remember what they said, you know what you saw, but somehow now you're not so sure. You're overreacting. That never happened. You're being dramatic. Over time, your internal compass breaks. You start to outsource your reality to the manipulator. You stop trusting your gut, and that's exactly what they want. 5. Love bombing and devaluation. At first, you're the center of their universe. You're flooded with praise, attention, gifts, texts. It's overwhelming and intoxicating. This is called love bombing, a rush of dopamine and validation that makes you emotionally dependent. But the moment you're hooked, the faucet turns off, the compliments fade, the warmth disappears. You're left chasing a high that never comes back. And here's the twisted part. You'll blame yourself. What did I do wrong? How can I get back to that version of them? This cycle, idealization, devaluation, discard, isn't random. It's engineered to break your sense of self. 6. Information warfare. Every casual conversation, every joke, every story you shared in confidence, it's being cataloged. They collect data like spies, weaknesses, traumas, fears. Not to understand you, but to control you. When the time is right, they'll weaponize your own story against you. Information becomes currency, and they hold the bank. The scariest part is that these tactics work, not because you're weak, but because you're human. They tap into universal psychological needs, the need to be seen, to feel important, to feel safe. And that's exactly what they exploit. Now here's the million-dollar question. If these tactics are so effective, why don't good people use them? Why do kind, ethical, thoughtful individuals so often get outplayed by manipulative ones? The answer lies in something deceptively simple: cognitive load. When you care about doing the right thing, your brain is constantly processing a moral checklist. Am I being fair? Could this hurt someone? Is this the right time? How would I feel if the roles were reversed? That a massive amount of mental energy, often invisible, but always running the background like heavy software. Now compare that to someone with no such filter. Their decision-making is laser-focused on one thing. What gets me what I want? They don't pause. They don't second-guess. They don't care. And in a fast-paced world, that ruthlessness often gets results, at least in the short term. But that's not the only reason good people struggle. Ethical people tend to assume that others share their values. They project honesty onto liars, kindness onto manipulators, empathy onto the cold, and that's dangerous. It means they enter situations unguarded. They give the benefit of the doubt. They forgive too quickly, rationalize bad behavior, and stay in toxic relationships far too long. Because surely they didn't mean it like that. They meant it exactly like that. You're playing chess. They're flipping the board. And here's the truth. If you're a good person, the game is rigged against you, at least at first, because you're playing with conscience, and they're playing for dominance. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because success that lasts and stands the test of time is an entirely different game. And history has a brutal way of sorting the temporary winners from the real ones. Let's look around. Tyrants, corrupt CEOs, narcissistic leaders, dictators, cult figures. So many of them rose fast, gained control, sat on the throne, and then came the fall. It's not a coincidence. It's a pattern. Why? Because systems built on fear, manipulation, and exploitation are inherently unstable. They rot from the inside, and eventually, they collapse under their own weight. Think about it. If you climb to the top by stepping on everyone, what do you think happens when those people get strong enough to push back? If your empire is built on lies, what happens when even one truth leaks through the cracks? There's a name for this in organizational psychology, the toxicity paradox. It describes how the same traits that help people rise to power, ruthlessness, deception, charisma without conscience, also sabotage their ability to lead effectively once they have power. It's like building a mansion on quicksand. It looks solid, it feels powerful, but it won't hold. Let's break this paradox down. At first, manipulation gets results, but over time, people catch on. They start to notice patterns. The lies, the backstabbing, the broken promises. And once trust is gone, it doesn't come back. People stop listening. They nod, they smile, but behind the scenes, they're pulling away. And here's the problem. Influence without trust is a house with no foundation. Eventually, that reputation becomes toxic. Your name becomes a warning. People work around you, not with you. And often, they actively plot your downfall. When you manipulate people to like you, you never know if they actually like you or if they're just protecting themselves. That uncertainty eats away at your sense of connection. It becomes impossible to know who to trust or if anyone cares about you, not just your status. What happens when you're surrounded by people who only tell you what you want to hear? You go blind, deluded, surrounded by yes men, cut off from truth, drifting deeper into self-created fantasy. Now here comes the psychological price tag, constant anxiety. When your entire position depends on maintaining control, on keeping secrets, on manipulating perceptions, your nervous system never gets a break. You're always scanning for threats, always looking over your shoulder, always wondering who might be plotting against you, or when the truth might leak. It's exhausting, and it leads to what psychologists call chronic hypervigilance, a state where your body is always in fight or flight mode. Let's say the manipulator still wins. They get the mansion, the money, the public applause, the illusion of control. Then what? Here's what the research says. People who climb through manipulation, domination, and deceit may succeed on paper, but inside, they're losing the battle. They suffer from the emotional fallout of chronic disconnection and hollow success, characterized by depression, substance abuse, relational breakdown, and existential void. It's the classic success trap. You spend years building an empire, only to realize you've walled yourself inside. The uncomfortable truth still remains that bad people often do win. They exploit psychological vulnerabilities, take advantage of others' goodness, and prioritize their own success above all else. But here's what I want you to remember. Their success is often hollow, temporary, and comes at a cost most of us wouldn't be willing to pay. The real question isn't whether you should become like them. The real question is whether you can become strong enough, smart enough, and strategic enough to succeed while maintaining your integrity. If this video opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Remember that the game is rigged, but that doesn't mean you can't win it on your own terms. I'll see you in the next video.